Gore! Dominus Prime Dragon roared in fury. His palm actually changed again, vaguely transforming into an incomparably huge dragon. This was the Prime Dragon, a kind of behemoth from the depths of the universe. It was said that it could devour stars, devour almost anything, and possessed boundless power. Dominus Prime Dragon cultivated a combat body that simulated the behemoth Prime Dragon. Transforming his palm into the Prime Dragon had already used all the power of his 30 million kilometer combat body, without holding back at all. Boom! Their fists met. In front of the huge Prime Dragon Phantom, Lin Feng's punch was as insignificant as an ant. However, when the two collided, a terrifying aftershock spread in all directions. The massive combat body of Dominus Prime Dragon actually retreated by thousands of kilometers at once. Everything in the cosmos fell silent, as if no battle had broken out at all. Lin Feng did not move in the slightest. His 180,000 kilometer combat body also shrank rapidly, returning to the size of a normal person. Lin Feng did not say anything. He only looked calmly at the distant Dominus Prime Dragon. As for the outcome of the battle between the two of them, neither Lin Sheng nor Lan Jing at the side knew. It seemed like Lin Feng and Dominus Prime Dragon had only exchanged a blow. Dominus Prime Dragon did not speak for a long time. Although his expression was very calm, inwardly, he was on the verge of a breakdown. That's right, Dominus Prime Dragon was already on the verge of a breakdown. No one would have thought that the interior of his 30 million kilometer combat body was already a mess, and countless cells were being annihilated. With just a single head-on clash, almost half of his combat body had been destroyed. He was holding out by force now. Otherwise, the state of his combat body would be devastating. Dominus Prime Dragon was incomparably shocked. Was this still an elementary planetary life form? Even a top-notch venerable could not do it. After all, Dominus Prime Dragon was himself a top-notch venerable. Lin Feng naturally knew the situation of Dominus Prime Dragon better than anyone, but he did not expose it. Instead, he smiled and asked, "Venerable Prime Dragon, your strength is indeed worthy of a top-notch venerable. We'll take our leave now." "Wait!" Dominus Prime Dragon suddenly spoke. Lin Feng was a little confused. Could it be that Prime Dragon still wanted to fight to the death? But even if he did Prime Dragon have any chance of winning? He had already spared Prime Dragon enough dignity now. Prime Dragon still had a way out. "Qi Feng does deserve to die. I'll leave Qi Shan to you." With that, Dominus Prime Dragon grabbed Qi Shan from planet Aquarius with a huge hand. Even though Prime Dragon was strong in appearance but weak in reality, and was barely holding out now, it was not a problem for him to capture Qi Shan, who had only undergone 5 life transitions. Qi Shan. Seeing Qi Shan, Lan Jing's eyes turned red. This was the burden she was carrying, the enemy she wanted to kill even in her dreams. Now Qi Shan was in front of her. Moreover, he had been personally captured Dominus Prime Dragon and delivered to Lan Jing. "Thank you for your gesture of goodwill, Dominus Prime Dragon." Lin Feng bowed slightly to Dominus Prime Dragon. After Prime Dragon returned to the Prime Dragon domain, Lin Feng had spared him enough dignity. Naturally, he had to return the favor and hand Qi Shan over to Lin Feng. Lin Sheng was a little surprised. Why was the Dominus Prime Dragon so polite? Could it be because of the tie between him and his father, Lin Feng? As Lin Sheng saw it, his father, Lin Feng, and Dominus Prime Dragon were evenly matched. From the looks of it, his father, Lin Feng, was also a top venerable. Lan Jing was just as excited as Lin Sheng. However, it was because her enemy was right in front of her now. She could finally kill her enemy with her own hands. Empitch? Qi Shan struggled to speak, but no matter how he struggled, he could not break free from his restraints. Qi Shan's combat body had been sealed by Dominus Prime Dragon, and he could not even deploy his combat body. Now he was like an ordinary person. Seeing Lan Jing's bloodshot eyes, he was naturally very frightened. "Lan Jing, go on and kill your enemy with your own hands. From now on, you are yourself, and no longer the Lan Jing who must carry her feud." Lin Sheng patted Lan Jing's arm gently. He knew how much the Lan Jing yearned to kill her enemy with her own hands. Now this opportunity had come. Lan Jing did not hesitate. She did not even want to say anything to Qi Shan, and struck him directly. Bang! Qi Shan's combat body had been sealed. He was just an ordinary person now. When Lan Jing struck him, his body exploded like a watermelon, turning into a bloody mist. Qi Shan was dead. The burden on Lan Jing's heart had been lifted, and she felt much lighter at once. "Thank you, Dominus." Lan Jing bowed respectfully to Lin Feng. She knew why all of this was happening. Dominus Prime Dragon had been so aggressive previously. Yet now he had taken the initiative to capture Qi Shan for her to deal with. It was not because of her, but because of Lin Feng's promise of one move. Although Lan Jing did not know the outcome of the battle between Lin Feng and Dominus Prime Dragon, at least from the look of it, Lin Feng was not inferior to Dominus Prime Dragon. This was enough. Dominus Prime Dragon would also give Lin Feng face, which was why Qi Shan was captured and handed over to Lin Feng. Lan Jing could kill her enemy with her own hands thanks to Lin Feng's help. She was naturally endlessly grateful. Lin Feng smiled and waved his hand. "We'll be family in the future. There's no need to stand on ceremony." Lan Jing's face was flushed as she glanced cautiously at Lin Shang again. Lin Shang was also very happy. As long as his father did not object, there was basically nothing stopping him and Lan Jing from getting together. "Let's go back to the Guardian Domain." Lin Feng turned around and took a long look at the distant Prime Dragon Domain. Then, he led Lin Shang and Lan Jing back to the Guardian Domain. Just as Lin Feng and the others left, another figure appeared in the void. It was Dominus Prime Dragon. Dominus Prime Dragon's face was pale. He looked at Lin Feng's departing back and muttered with a weak smile. "When did such a freak appear in the North River Galaxy? One strike, just one strike, and I'm severely injured. If he had wanted to kill me, perhaps he would only need one strike as well." Dominus Prime Dragon was a top-notch venerable, and was even known as one of the strongest venerables below the level of a Grand Emperor. Apart from a Grand Emperor who could defeat him in one move. However, Dominus Prime Dragon knew very well that while Lin Feng was not a Grand Emperor, Lin Feng could indeed defeat him with ease. Fortunately, Lin Feng did not have the ambition to annex the Prime Dragon Domain. Otherwise, the Prime Dragon Domain would probably no longer exist now. All these years, I've been overambitious and even a little arrogant. The universe is huge, and even the mere North River Galaxy has hidden talents. I thought that I was already very close to a Grand Emperor, but from the looks of things I'm still very far from it. With that, Dominus Prime Dragon disappeared in the cosmos as well. "Father, who exactly won this battle?" On the way back to Guardian Domain, Lin Feng did not use spatial warp. This was his trump card. He would not use it lightly unless absolutely necessary, even though his current power was already very, very strong. Even Lin Shang did not know that Lin Feng could warp space. Seeing Lin Shang's expectant gaze, Lin Feng smiled and asked, "Shang'er, who do you think had won?" Lin Shang was a little hesitant. He wanted to say that his father, Lin Feng, had won, but Dominus Prime Dragon was so renowned and one of the top venerables. Moreover, Dominus Prime Dragon did not show any obvious sign of weakness at that time. He really could not be sure who had won. Dominus had won. Suddenly, Lan Jing spoke up beside him, and her tone was rather certain. "Ha!" Lin Feng glanced at Lan Jing in surprise. "Are you so sure?" Even Lin Shang hurriedly said, "Lan Jing, don't spout nonsense. Although my father is very strong, Dominus Prime Dragon is the top venerable." However, Lan Jing shook her head and said with extreme certainty, "I'm very certain that Dominus must have won." "Oh? Tell me, how can you tell that I won?" Lin Feng also looked at Lan Jing with interest, wanting to see how Lan Jing could tell that he was definitely the victor. After all, even his son Lin Shang could not be certain. Dominus Prime Dragon is very prideful. He's one of the top venerables. Although he appeared to be on par with Dominus, the fact that Dominus Prime Dragon gave up Qi Shan was already a sign of goodwill to Dominus. That's it? If I was on par with the Dominus Prime Dragon, and he viewed me highly enough to give up Qi Shan, That's not an impossibility either, right? Of course, that's indeed a possibility. However, Dominus has always maintained your composure from the beginning to the end. Even when facing Dominus Prime Dragon, you always maintained a calm demeanor. Without powerful strength, if it's just a bluff, it's completely impossible to fool Dominus Prime Dragon. However, Dominus has always maintained this state. Whether it's when facing Dominus Prime Dragon or after the battle with Dominus Prime Dragon, you always maintain this demeanor. There's only one possibility. Dominus is far stronger than Dominus Prime Dragon. Hence, no matter how strong Dominus Prime Dragon is, it appears to be meaningless in your eyes. Lin Feng was a little surprised. Lan Jing had basically guessed most of the truth. Compared to Lin Shang, Lan Jing was more meticulous. Father, is what Lan Jing said true? Seeing that Lin Feng did not object, Lin Shang's emotions surged. His eyes widened in disbelief. That's right. I did win that battle just now. Lin Feng did not conceal it anymore and admitted it openly. You really won. Lin Shang did not quite believe it. He had seen with his own eyes that his father, Lin Feng, only had a combat body of 180,000 kilometers. It was already an incredible feat that he could remain undefeated in front of the Dominus Prime Dragon, let alone defeat Dominus Prime Dragon. Was this possible? Father, how did you defeat Dominus Prime Dragon? Lin Shang was not the only one who was confused. In reality, Lan Jing was also very curious. She had only deduced from some clues that Lin Feng had the upper hand and defeated Dominus Prime Dragon. However, she was also puzzled. How could an elementary planetary life form defeat a top venerable? This had never happened in the history of the North River Galaxy. Shenger, you've already undergone 5 life transitions. Do you know about laws? Laws? Of course I know about them. According to what I heard, laws are powerful methods that all planetary life forms cultivate diligently. They are the key to comprehending the truth of the universe. However, cultivating laws is too difficult. It's even more difficult than undergoing 6 life transitions and becoming a planetary life form. Lin Feng nodded and said, That's right. Laws are indeed very difficult to comprehend, but once comprehended, combined with the corresponding combat body, it can enhance the strength of the combat body. The rudimentary law can only enhance it by 10 times. The elementary planetary law can increase it by 100 times. In the past, I relied on the elementary planetary law to enhance the combat body by 100-fold, which was why I was on par with an ordinary venerable. 100-fold enhancement? Lin Shang and Lan Jing were both shocked. Although they had roamed the universe for a period of time, how could they know about a cultivation secret like the law-enhanced combat body? Moreover, in the North River Galaxy, there were ultimately very few cultivators who had comprehended laws. Cultivating the combat body was the mainstream. Naturally, no one explained the mysteries of laws to the two of them in detail. Only now did they realize how terrifying laws were. If one comprehended a rudimentary law, it could increase their combat body by 10-fold. If they comprehended a planetary law, it could even increase the combat body by 100-fold. Even a 10,000-kilometer combat body with a 100-fold enhancement would be comparable to a 1,000,000-kilometer combat body, almost equivalent to a venerable. Lin Shang did some calculations. When Lin Feng used his combat body, he had a combat body of 180,000 kilometers. If it was enhanced by 100-fold, it would be a combat body of 18 million kilometers. This was already rather terrifying. A combat body of 18 million kilometers was already equivalent to those powerful venerables, and was even stronger than Venerable Vigil. However, although the combat body of 18 million kilometers was very strong, Dominus Prime Dragon had a combat body of 30 million kilometers. Even if Lin Feng had a 100-fold enhancement from laws, it was impossible for him to defeat the Dominus Prime Dragon. At this thought, Lin Shang felt that he had missed something. Wait a minute. Father said that the elementary planetary laws can provide a 100-fold enhancement. Moreover, many years ago, Father was able to converse with Venerable Vigil as equals, probably because his strength is not much inferior to Venerable Vigil. From the looks of it, Father had already comprehended the laws to the elementary planetary level a long time ago. And now, decades have passed. Lin Sheng's eyes suddenly widened in disbelief. Father, could it be that you're your law? Lin Feng nodded, and a smile appeared on his lips. He said slowly, now do you understand why I won? In the entire North River Galaxy, who else besides me can use the advanced planetary law? Lin Sheng and Lan Jing's mouths fell open. They were also shocked to the extreme. At the level of advanced planetary law, just the power of the law alone was comparable to that of a venerable. Moreover, it could enhance the strength of the combat body by 1,000-fold. What did that mean? Taking Lin Feng's current title combat body as an example, if Lin Feng used the advanced planetary law, his combat body would be enhanced instantly by 1,000 times, which would make it equivalent to a combat body of 180 million kilometers. Lin Feng did not know how massive the combat body of a Grand Emperor was, but Lin Feng had never heard of anyone whose combat body could reach more than 100 million kilometers among advanced planetary cultivators. Dominus Prime Dragon could already be considered a top venerable in the North River Galaxy with just a 30 million kilometer combat body, not to mention the others. The way Lin Sheng and Lan Jing looked at Lin Feng had completely changed. The law enhanced the combat body by 1,000-fold. Even a top-notch venerable like Dominus Prime Dragon could not withstand a single strike from Lin Feng. In the North River Galaxy, apart from Grand Emperors, who else was Lin Feng's match? Unknowingly, Lin Feng had already become the strongest person below the Grand Emperors in the North River Galaxy. Seeing Lin Sheng and Lan Jing's dumbfounded expressions, Lin Feng smiled knowingly. The reason he said so much was actually to tell Lin Sheng that the Guardian Domain was very strong, and that he had a strong backing. As the century approached, Lin Feng knew very well that he did not have much time left in the North River Galaxy. Before he left, he hoped that a second planetary lifeform could be born to humanity on his home planet. Lin Feng would prefer that this second planetary lifeform be his son, Lin Sheng. Let's go home. Lin Feng looked at the stunned Lin Sheng and Lan Jing, smiled, and led the two of them back to the Guardian Domain. In the Guardian Domain, Lin Feng's return was uneventful. After all, apart from Lin Sheng and Lan Jing, who were watching from the sidelines, no one else knew about Lin Feng's battle with Dominus Prime Dragon. Since Dominus Prime Dragon had lost, it was even more impossible for him to expose his own defeat. Hence, no one in the Guardian Domain knew that Lin Feng had gone to the Prime Dragon Domain and fought with Dominus Prime Dragon. Chu Chen was already waiting outside. When she saw Lin Sheng, a gentle expression appeared on her face, and she finally heaved a sigh of relief. Mother! Lin Sheng bowed respectfully to Chu Chen. Auntie! Lan Jing was also a little nervous. She was not even this nervous when facing Lin Feng, and did not even dare to look at Chu Chen. Chu Chen smiled slightly, then shook her head. Lin Sheng was safe. This was her greatest wish. Although she appeared very calm on the surface, in reality, after hearing that Lin Sheng asked for help, she was also a little worried. Fortunately, everything went smoothly, and Lin Sheng had even brought a girl along. Lin Feng sent a secret voice transmission and briefly explained the matter regarding Lan Jing. Chu Chen nodded inwardly. Lan Jing was not using her son, and even had a tragic past. Now, she was alone without anyone to rely on, and was mutually in love with her son, Lin Sheng. Chu Chen had no reason to object. Lan Jing, how about you live in the Guardian Domain in the future? You can help us to keep an eye out on Shenger too. Although he's not young, he hasn't settled down yet. He's always roaming around and encountering many dangers. Chu Chen's amiable attitude made Lan Jing gradually relax. The two of them chatted and laughed, looking like friendly sisters. Lin Sheng also heaved a sigh of relief. He looked up and realized that his father, Lin Feng, was staring at him. Shenger, follow me. Lin Sheng was a little curious. He did not know why his father had called him alone, but he still followed Lin Feng obediently to the secret chamber. Shenger, what are your thoughts after this experience? Lin Feng asked solemnly. Thoughts? Lin Sheng thought carefully and finally said in a low voice, I feel that I'm too weak. I can't even protect the people around me. I want to be powerful. That's right. Now, do you understand the significance of Guardian Domain? Father, I understand your painstaking efforts now. Lin Sheng truly understood now. Only when he was too weak to do anything, and struggling helplessly before Qi Feng, did he realize how difficult things were for his father, Lin Feng. If he were in Lin Feng's place, bringing his home planet to its current state was simply unimaginable. Back then, the entire human race on his home planet was on Lin Feng's shoulders. Under such immense pressure, it was already a miracle that Lin Feng was not crushed. Moreover, he had single-handedly brought his home planet to the North River Galaxy and developed the Guardian Domain. Only now did Lin Sheng understand what a great man his father was. If it were him, he would not be able to carry this responsibility at all. Since you understand the meaning of protection, you should know that without strength, empty words of ambition are meaningless. Now I'll demonstrate the law of tides for you. You have to study it attentively. If you can comprehend the law of tides, it will be very helpful for improving your strength. As for the 6 life transitions, remember to try your best to improve your combat body. If you can improve your combat body to the consummate level, you will naturally be able to metamorphose into a planetary life form. Consummate combat body? Lin Sheng had never heard of anything called the consummate combat body. Lin Feng had only learned the secret of the consummate combat body after cultivating it for the first time in the divine palace of Bamand. Now, Lin Feng would pass on the secret of the consummate combat body to Lin Sheng and ask him to work hard in the direction of the consummate combat body. It did not matter if he failed. As long as he worked hard, even if he failed to master the consummate combat body in the end, it would still be of great benefit to Lin Sheng when he metamorphosed into a planetary life form in the future. Lin Feng imparted laws and the combat body techniques one by one. Of course, what he imparted was not the tidal combat body. However, with Lin Feng's current understanding of the law of tides, and his cultivation of the tidal combat body on top of it, it was not hard for him to alter the tidal combat body slightly. The tidal combat body was the combat body of the divine palace of Bamand. Could not be imparted lightly. However, the combat body that Lin Feng had improved did not belong to the divine palace of Bamand. Even cultivators who were advanced planetary life forms could not improve the combat body. However, Lin Feng had comprehended the law of tides, and his comprehension of it was at the advanced planetary level. His understanding of the tidal combat body was even stronger than those grand emperors who were ultimate planetary life forms. That was why he could easily improve the tidal combat body. The combat body and laws that Lin Feng had left for Lin Sheng were the foundation of the territory and his home planet. To stand tall in the North River Galaxy, legacies were indispensable. Lin Feng had given Lin Sheng legacies now. From territory, legacies to security measures, Lin Feng had left almost everything for his home planet. If his home planet still could not develop safely even then, there was nothing Lin Feng could do. He had already paved the way. How his home planet could develop would depend on the humans on it. Father, are you leaving? Lin Sheng saw that his father had handed over the combat body and laws to him completely, and seemed to be instructing him about future matters regarding the home planet and the Guardian Domain. Lin Sheng felt a trace of unease. It seemed like his father was about to leave. That's right. I'm indeed about to leave the North River Galaxy. Lin Feng did not hide it and heaved a long sigh. The 100-year deadline was about to arrive. He could not stay in the North River Galaxy forever. He had to return to the divine palace of Bamand. The Big Bang was a grand event for all cultivators above the planetary level. Perhaps even the many grand emperors of the North River Galaxy would participate. If he missed this opportunity, there was no knowing how long he would have to wait before the next Big Bang. Hence, Lin Feng would not miss this Big Bang. Seeing that Lin Sheng seemed a little anxious, Lin Feng smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'm only leaving temporarily this time. If there are no accidents in the future, I'll come back often too. However, I'm going to participate in the Big Bang this time. Such a grand event can only be chanced upon by luck. Even grand emperors and divine kings seek after it eagerly and will not miss it. Hence, I'll take my avatar with me as well, and participate in the Big Bang in my strongest state. After I leave, Venerable Vigil will help me to take care of the Guardian Domain. However, It is of utmost importance that the guardian domain must become independent. Do you understand? Lin Sheng nodded hard, indicating that he understood. Lin Feng had no choice. If he left his avatar behind, the guardian domain would naturally be safest. However, the reason he was participating in the Big Bang this time was actually to acquire the innumerable new substances produced during the Big Bang. These new substances would very likely allow Lin Feng's combat body to reach consummation. Then, he could undergo metamorphosis directly and become an advanced planetary life form. Hence, he could not leave any avatar behind. Otherwise, his combat body would not become consummate, and it would pose a hindrance to his cultivation. Faced with a grand event like the Big Bang, Lin Feng naturally did not dare to slack off at all. He had to give it his all. Next, Lin Feng went all out to nurture Lin Sheng. Of course, Lin Feng was not stingy with the others on his home planet. He supported all those who were truly outstanding. This was especially the case for cultivators with 5 life transitions. Lin Feng publicly invited those cultivators with 5 life transitions in the Guardian Domain, and it was not limited to human cultivators on his home planet. All cultivators with 5 life transitions who lived in the Guardian Domain and followed the rules of the Guardian Domain received Lin Feng's invitation. Lin Feng explained some cultivation experiences regarding the combat body in detail. In particular, the experience regarding the beginning of metamorphosis into a planetary life form from 6 life transitions was very rare and precious. Without a master, it was almost impossible to obtain such experiences. Often, many cultivators who lacked such experience took the wrong path. They might even end up with regrets for the rest of their lives. However, with the experience imparted by Lin Feng, many cultivators could examine themselves and see if they had taken the wrong path. If they had not, they would continue forward, and one day, they would be able to metamorphose into a planetary life form. If they took the wrong path, they would correct it in time to avoid sinking deeper. Lin Feng imparted various cultivation experiences, and it took a total of 3 days. In these 3 days, many cultivators had gained a lot. Moreover, they were deeply grateful to Lin Feng and had a greater sense of belonging to the Guardian Domain. After all, almost no one in the entire North River Galaxy had ever heard of a dominus who could openly impart cultivation experience like Lin Feng. Cultivation experiences were usually only imparted to disciples. 3 days later, Lin Feng made a trip to Vigil Domain to visit Venerable Vigil. Haha, Brother Lin Feng, I heard that you are publicly imparting cultivation experience in the Guardian Domain. This is an unprecedented event in the North River Galaxy. From afar, Venerable Vigil's voice entered Lin Feng's ears. Lin Feng smiled weakly and shook his head. Big brother, don't make fun of me. I had no choice. I'm about to leave the North River Galaxy, but not a single planetary lifeform cultivator has been born in my Guardian Domain yet. This is the only solution. This was the truth. It was not that Lin Feng had such nobility that he wanted to preach to the world when no one else had done it, but that the Guardian Domain's foundation was shallow. It might not even have a foundation to speak of. Apart from Lin Feng, there was no other planetary life form. Lin Feng had no choice but to use this method, hoping that a planetary life form could be born in the Guardian Domain as soon as possible. Whether there were planetary life forms in a domain was still rather important. Brother Lin Feng is leaving? Venerable Vigil was very surprised. The Guardian Domain was prospering in the present. Why was Lin Feng suddenly leaving? Big brother, have you ever heard of the Big Bang? Of course I've heard of the Big Bang. It's a grand event for the entire universe. Forget about Grand Emperors, there's no knowing how many galactic-level Divine Kings will be there. Is Brother Lin Feng going to participate in the Big Bang? Venerable Vigil's eyes lit up. The Big Bang was a rare event in the universe. During this period, many new substances and all kinds of miraculous items would be produced. All of them actually appeared during the Big Bang. That's right. I've already made an agreement with someone in the Divine Palace 100 years ago that I'll definitely participate in the Big Bang. Big brother, why don't you participate in the Big Bang? Venerable Vigil smiled weakly and shook his head. Brother Lin Feng, I'm different from you. Although I seem to be very prestigious in the North River Galaxy, if I head to the Big Bang, there's a high chance that I'll be doomed. I'm an itinerant cultivator, and most cultivators in the North River Galaxy are also itinerant cultivators. Normally, it doesn't matter much and it wouldn't affect things at all. However, if I head to the Big Bang, where the various major factions in the universe gather, even those famous Grand Emperors in our North River Galaxy will only be minor characters. Lin Feng nodded to himself. That was the truth. Just the divine palace of Bamond alone had many ultimate planetary lifeforms. In the North River Galaxy, they would be Grand Emperors and top-notch Grand Emperors at that. If Grand Emperors of the North River Galaxy participated in the Big Bang, they would be nothing much. Any major faction would be stronger than the many Grand Emperors of the North River Galaxy. Even the divine palace of Bamond could not be considered powerful in the vast universe. They had to stick together or they would still be in danger during the Big Bang. Although they knew that there were many benefits to the Big Bang, most of the Domini of the North River Galaxy probably would not participate. It was not that they could not, but that they did not dare to. Big Brother, rest assured that if I obtain some new substances in the Big Bang, Big Brother will definitely get a share. Haha. Then I'll thank you in advance. Don't worry, brother. After you leave, you can be assured of the safety of the Guardian Domain. Whoever once goes against the Guardian Domain will be going against the Vigil Domain. This was exactly what Lin Feng wanted to hear. Otherwise, why would he specially visit Venerable Vigil, and even promise Venerable Vigil some new substances from the Big Bang? Actually, it was just to ask Venerable Vigil to help look out for the Guardian Domain. Having been in the North River Galaxy for so many years, Lin Feng still trusted Spirit Master Yu more. Hence, he could only ask Spirit Master Yu for help regarding the safety of the Guardian Domain first. Then I'll be counting on you, Big Brother. Haha. Don't worry, brother Lin Feng. After Lin Feng bade farewell to Venerable Vigil, he returned to the Guardian Domain. He still needed to inform Chu Qin. Although Chu Chun was a little reluctant, she was different from Lin Shang. She knew that Lin Feng was carrying the responsibility of their entire home planet, and now he was carrying the responsibility of the entire Guardian Domain. Moreover, Lin Feng had been by her side for more than 80 years. She could not be selfish and ask Lin Feng to stay by her side forever. Hence, Chu Chun did not stop him, and told Lin Feng to leave without worries. She would deal with matters in Guardian Domain properly. Everything was ready, but Lin Feng still had one last thing to do. Hence, he broke through the space and instantly stepped into a spatial passage, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. The Scorpius domain had more than 10,000 territorial planets. It was one of the strongest domains in the entire North River Galaxy. This was because it was the domain of Grand Emperor Scorpius. Grand Emperor Scorpius had been famous for a long time. He was renowned in the North River Galaxy and became one of the strongest emperors. In his early years, he had gone to war everywhere. But now, Grand Emperor Scorpius was focused on cultivating and attempting to become a divine king. Hence, he rarely appeared anymore. Even though Grand Emperor Scorpius rarely appeared, no one dared to provoke the Scorpius domain. The entire Scorpius domain could be considered one of the safest domains in the North River Galaxy. But suddenly, the void rippled like water, spreading in all directions. A figure walked out of the void and stood quietly in the cosmos. His gaze was incomparably deep as he looked at the distant Scorpius domain. Scorpius domain. This figure was naturally Lin Feng. He had shuttled from the Guardian domain to the other end of the North River Galaxy, and directly to the Scorpius domain. He had only one purpose, and it was naturally to challenge the Grand Emperor Scorpius. Grand Emperors were the top entities in the North River Galaxy. Among the ultimate planetary cultivators, apart from the North River Divine King, the Grand Emperors were the strongest. Lin Feng had already defeated Dominus Prime Dragon, and it was done effortlessly. This only made Lin Feng even more confused about his own strength. It seemed like a venerable was no longer his match. Then what about a Grand Emperor above a venerable? Lin Feng had to figure it out. Otherwise, he might encounter all kinds of experts when participating in the Big Bang. If he was unclear about the tier of his own strength, wouldn't it be very dangerous? Hence, before leaving, Lin Feng was prepared to challenge a Grand Emperor, and go all out to see how much difference there was between himself and a Grand Emperor. As for the dangers that might occur, Lin Feng was not too concerned. His comprehension of the law of space had already reached the advanced level, and he could warp space directly at any time. Even if space was shattered, as long as there was still a sliver of space, Lin Feng could warp it. Even if a divine king sealed space immediately, Lin Feng could still warp it with some effort. Hence, when one's comprehension of the law of space reached a high level, they would almost be invincible. Of course, some artifacts might be able to seal space such that even the advanced planetary law of space could not traverse it. However, such artifacts were ultimately rare. If Lin Feng's comprehension of the law of space reached the ultimate level, he could practically warp space with a thought. No power or artifact could stop him from warping space anymore. Moreover, even if something unexpected happened, Lin Feng still had the Black Hole Pearl. This was an artifact refined by Divine King Bamond, comparable to a strike from a Grand Emperor. Lin Feng had enough trump cards to protect himself. He had nothing to fear, even when facing a Grand Emperor. Hence, Lin Feng planned to challenge a Grand Emperor to see how strong he was now, and the gap between himself and a Grand Emperor. In order not to avoid being recognized by the Grand Emperor, Lin Feng even chose the Scorpius domain, which was very far from the Guardian domain, and prepared to challenge Grand Emperor Scorpius. At this moment, the atmosphere in Scorpius domain was still peaceful. Countless cultivators surged into the Scorpius domain to trade for some resources they needed. Lin Feng could even sense that there were those at the level of venerables, paying close attention to everything around them. However, all of this had nothing to do with Lin Feng. Greater Annihilative Combat Body. Lin Feng did not hesitate at all and immediately used the Greater Annihilative Combat Body. Since he wanted to fight, the Greater Annihilative Combat Body was the most suitable. The Greater Annihilative Combat Body, which was 200,000 kilometers in size, emitted a terrifying aura. Such a huge combat body naturally attracted the attention of the Scorpius domain. Streaks of mental power swept through the cosmos where Lin Feng was. Then, 3 elementary planetary lifeforms with combat bodies of tens of thousands of kilometers flew out. Who are you? You cannot deploy your combat body outside the Scorpius domain. The 3 of them warned Lin Feng coldly, but they were not on guard. Who would dare to attack them? This was the Scorpius domain. Even venerables had to behave themselves when they came here, and did not dare to be unruly at all. Moreover, Lin Feng was clearly an elementary planetary lifeform. I'm here to challenge Grand Emperor Scorpius. Lin Feng suddenly spoke. Everyone was stunned. Challenging Grand Emperor Scorpius? The 3 of them sized Lin Feng up carefully. Finally, they could not help but smile slightly and say, "What did you say? Challenge Grand Emperor Scorpius? Haha. Stop joking around and leave quickly. Otherwise, you'll be in trouble if you displease the venerables." The 3 of them shook their heads. How could they believe that an elementary planetary cultivator wanted to challenge Grand Emperor Scorpius? That was impossible. Lin Feng had already expected this would happen. He did not say anything else, and directly struck out with a palm. What? The 3 of them turned pale with shock. They could not believe their eyes. Someone actually dared to attack them outside the Scorpius domain? Even though the 3 of them all used their origin weapons one after another, how terrifying was a palm strike from Lin Feng. Even without using laws, it could easily defeat these 3 planetary lifeforms. Boom! The 3 of them were sent flying for tens of thousands of kilometers. This was with Lin Feng showing mercy. Otherwise, the 3 of them would not have just been sent flying. How dare you! A venerable used his combat body and charged towards Lin Feng like a roaring behemoth. You're not qualified. Get lost. Lin Feng deliberately used an arrogant tone to send this venerable flying with a palm strike. That was a venerable with a combat body of tens of millions of kilometers, almost on par with Venerable Vigil. He was considered an expert even in the Scorpius domain, yet he was still sent flying by Lin Feng's palm strike. Moreover, Lin Feng's voice spread throughout the Scorpius domain. For a moment, more than 10 terrifying auras soared into the sky from the Scorpius domain. They were all venerables of the Scorpius domain. Lin Feng was not interested in fighting with these venerables. He shouted, "Grand Emperor Scorpius, do you only dare to hide within the Scorpius domain?" As soon as these words were spoken, everyone in the Scorpius domain was incomparably furious. Grand Emperor Scorpius reigned supreme in the Scorpius domain. No one would dare to insult Grand Emperor Scorpius. But now, Lin Feng's words were clearly an insult to the Grand Emperor Scorpius. There was already a strong killing intent in the auras of those venerables. Those in the Scorpius domain were even more shaken. Who dares to provoke Grand Emperor Scorpius? The last time someone provoked Grand Emperor Scorpius was more than 18,000 years ago, right? At that time, I think it was a top venerable who wanted to fight the Grand Emperor to stimulate his potential. However, that top venerable was killed by Grand Emperor Scorpius with only one move. Will Grand Emperor Scorpius appear? It feels like it's been a long time since Grand Emperor Scorpius appeared. Seeing someone was challenging the Grand Emperor Scorpius, none of the many cultivators in the Scorpius domain were actually afraid. Instead, they behaved like they were watching a show. Many of them were even very excited. Grand Emperor Scorpius had been famed for a long time. No one would think that Lin Feng, an elementary planetary cultivator, could pose any threat to Grand Emperor Scorpius. They were more interested in whether they could see Grand Emperor Scorpius. After all, Grand Emperor Scorpius had not made an appearance in a long time. Grand Emperor Scorpius did not appear, even when Lin Feng provoked him. Those that appeared were 13 venerables. 2 of them were even top-notch venerables. Their combat bodies had already exceeded 30 million kilometers, which was about the same as Venerable Prime Dragon. Seeing so many powerful venerables and the large number of elementary planetary lifeforms in the Scorpius domain, Lin Feng was also very envious. This was true foundation. With such a foundation, even without Grand Emperor Scorpius, the Scorpius domain could still stand tall in the North River Galaxy. However, it would be too troublesome to fight more than 10 venerables one by one. Lin Feng's goal was to challenge the Grand Emperor Scorpius and see the difference between himself and a Grand Emperor, not to really start a feud with the Scorpius domain. Get lost! Lin Feng did not hold back. With the enhancement of the greater annihilative combat body and the advanced planetary law of annihilation, Lin Feng's greater annihilative combat body was equivalent to a combat body of 200 million kilometers. How terrifying was this? With a single palm strike, it covered everything, enveloping the entire cosmos. All the venerables felt their vision darken. They did not even have any ability to resist before they were sent flying millions of kilometers away. Everyone was aghast. This was decidedly not a power that a venerable could possess. Could it be a Grand Emperor? The entire cosmos seemed to have fallen silent all of a sudden. Everyone who saw this scene was speechless. Just now, they were still discussing how ignorant Lin Feng was to actually dare to challenge Grand Emperor Scorpius. But now, Lin Feng had defeated 13 venerables with one move. Moreover, 2 of the venerables were the top venerables below Grand Emperors. How could anyone but a Grand Emperor defeat more than 10 venerables in one move? Is he really a Grand Emperor? But I don't think I've ever seen this Grand Emperor before. Perhaps he changed his appearance and doesn't want his identity to be known. The voices of discussion gradually diminished in volume. If Lin Feng were a Grand Emperor who came to challenge Grand Emperor Scorpius, things would be different. It was bound to be a devastating battle. If they were not careful, even the entire Scorpius domain might be destroyed. At this moment, the dozen or so venerables who had been sent flying by Lin Feng's palm strike also came to their senses one after another. Their expressions turned very dark, especially the 2 top-notch venerables. They actually could not resist at all before they were sent flying. The difference was just too great. However, no matter how reluctant they were, they had no choice but to accept that this new challenger was very likely really a Grand Emperor. Otherwise, how could he have put them in such a sorry state? Moreover, the other party had shown mercy. Although some of the dozen or so venerables were seriously injured, none of them died. Hence, they did not dare to approach. Instead, they all sent messages to Grand Emperor Scorpius. Lin Feng stood in the cosmos, and the aura on his body gradually converged. The 200,000-kilometer combat body seemed insignificant in the eyes of many venerables, but no one dared to underestimate Lin Feng now. It was as if the 200,000-kilometer combat body had already become a special message. Lin Feng was not in a hurry. He waited quietly and adjusted his state. Ever since he had comprehended all 3 laws to the advanced level, he had never attacked with his full strength. Be it when facing Dominus Prime Dragon, or the Venerables of Scorpius Domain, Lin Feng had actually not even used half of his strength before he was already near invincible. Almost no Venerable could withstand a single strike from him. Only a Grand Emperor could make Lin Feng attack with his full strength. The cosmos seemed to have become even calmer, but Lin Feng's eyes suddenly focused. Then, he only stared at the distant cosmos as a man slowly walked over. This man looked very young, but his eyes were very deep. There was no knowing how long he had lived. There was no overly powerful aura on him from head to toe, but he made Lin Feng's heart palpitate. No one had ever been able to make Lin Feng feel this way. It was as if he was facing the Divine King Bamand from back then, but there was a difference. Divine King Bamand was actually not too imposing. In fact, there was no imposing air from him at all. There was just a kind of suppression in terms of the level of life. However, this mysterious person did not suppress him in terms of the level of life, but gave off an extremely strong sense of danger. Grand Emperor Scorpius. Lin Feng enunciated each word clearly and said in a solemn tone. He had come to the Scorpius domain to challenge Grand Emperor Scorpius. Naturally, he had done his research and knew what Grand Emperor Scorpius looked like. The mysterious man in front of him was Grand Emperor Scorpius. Lin Feng treated him as a formidable enemy, and his expression became very solemn. Grand Emperor Scorpius had finally appeared. This was the first time he was facing a Grand Emperor directly. Even back in the Divine Palace of Bamand, Lin Feng had never seen an ultimate planetary lifeform who was a Grand Emperor in terms of power. He did not know how strong a Grand Emperor was, but now that he was facing Grand Emperor Scorpius head-on, a strong sense of danger arose in the depths of his heart. He vaguely sensed that a Grand Emperor was probably stronger than he had imagined. Your aura is very unique. You are not a Grand Emperor or even a Venerable. You have undergone 6 life transitions, and you're an elementary planetary life form. Grand Emperor Scorpius frowned and sized Lin Feng up carefully. In the end, even Grand Emperor Scorpius could not help but be surprised. There were countless elementary planetary life forms in his Scorpius domain. However, even 10 or 100 elementary planetary life forms combined were not as powerful as Lin Feng. Moreover, being able to send more than 10 Venerables flying with a single palm strike was not something elementary planetary life forms could accomplish at all. Could the other party really be a Grand Emperor, just one who had special methods to conceal his aura? For the first time, Grand Emperor Scorpius felt that he could not see through Lin Feng. While Grand Emperor Scorpius was confused, Lin Feng was not calm either. When facing Grand Emperor Scorpius, he felt transparent, as if he had been seen through. As expected of a Grand Emperor, he was indeed not someone a Venerable could compare to. Who are you? Grand Emperor Scorpius. You can call me Wanderer. Lin Feng had already thought of an alias. Wanderer. Grand Emperor Scorpius's frown deepened. He could tell that the Wanderer was definitely an alias, and he had changed his appearance. He was certain that there was no such person as the Wanderer in the North River Galaxy. Could he actually be one of those ascetic cultivators drifting through the universe, desperately seeking the mysteries of the universe? If he was really one of those ascetic cultivators, Grand Emperor definitely did not dare to underestimate him. Those ascetic cultivators were like lunatics in the eyes of Grand Emperor Scorpius. There were even entities at the level of the Grand Emperors among them. They were entirely focused on metamorphosing again, undergoing a life transition, and thus attaining sublimation. It was not like Grand Emperor Scorpius had never met such ascetic cultivators before. They were all rather tricky to deal with. Lin Feng's alias was Wanderer, and he was powerful. This gave Grand Emperor Scorpius the misconception that Lin Feng might be a drifter. Lin Feng would much rather Grand Emperor Scorpius remain ignorant to his origins. He no longer hesitated and said with a solemn expression, "Grand Emperor Scorpius, I came specially for you. I want to challenge you." "Challenge me?" Grand Emperor Scorpius shook his head. As long as the other party was not a Grand Emperor, Grand Emperor Scorpius would not pay any mind to it. "Let's go further from here. Don't destroy the Scorpius domain." "Of course." Hence, Lin Feng and Grand Emperor Scorpius left the Scorpius domain. Those venerables and some bolder elementary planetary lifeforms followed them from afar. This unprecedented battle between Grand Emperors was something that could only be chanced upon by luck. If they missed this opportunity, there was no knowing how long it would take for them to encounter the next one. Hence, none of them were willing to miss this opportunity. They would rather watch from afar. Lin Feng and Grand Emperor Scorpius confronted each other in the cosmos. Neither of them paid attention to the others. Their mental power immediately locked onto the other. Scorpius combat body. Grand Emperor Scorpius did not dare to take things lightly. He deployed its combat body, and his body expanded wildly. Immediately, a terrifying aura was emitted. It was as if even the cosmos was shaking. Even Lin Feng felt a huge pressure on his combat body. Powerful, too powerful. No wonder some people called the Grand Emperors black holes. It was not that their combat bodies were black holes. In reality, even black holes were not as massive as the combat body of Grand Emperors. However, the combat body of a Grand Emperor could affect all living beings or planets within a radius of billions of kilometers, like a black hole. The sheer impact it radiated was unimaginable. As for Lin Feng, this was the first time he was facing the unimaginably massive combat body of a Grand Emperor. Boom! Lin Feng did not hesitate at all. Before Grand Emperor Scorpius's combat body was completely deployed, he had already unleashed the full power of the greater annihilative combat body. Moreover, it was with the enhancement of the advanced planetary law of annihilation. With the thousandfold enhancement of the law of annihilation, Lin Feng's strength was easily comparable to 200 million kilometers. Moreover, the law of annihilation was devastating and capable of destroying anything. When Lin Feng's full power strike struck Grand Emperor Scorpius's body, a devastating force erupted with a bang. Immediately, the cells of Grand Emperor Scorpius's combat body collapsed continuously. However, that was all. Grand Emperor Scorpius did not even move from Lin Feng's full power strike. He even allowed its combat body cells to collapse continuously, as if he did not care at all. Grand Emperor Scorpius was even rather surprised. "You're not a Grand Emperor. This power is far inferior to a Grand Emperor. You've comprehended at least an advanced planetary law." Grand Emperor Scorpius came to a sudden realization. He finally understood why he felt that he could not see through the Wanderer, even though the Wanderer's combat body was only 200,000 kilometers long. From the looks of it now, it was not that he could not see through the Wanderer, but that he had long seen through him. It was just that he refused to believe it. The Wanderer was really just an elementary planetary life form. The 200,000-kilometer combat body was also the true combat body of the Wanderer. However, the Wanderer could easily defeat more than 10 venerables. It seemed like something only a Grand Emperor could do. But Grand Emperor Scorpius had neglected to consider one type of individuals, and that was cultivators who had comprehended laws. For certain special cultivators, if they comprehended a rudimentary law, it could enhance their combat body by tenfold if combined with the combat body. If they could comprehend the elementary planetary law, it could even enhance their combat body by 100-fold. There were even those who comprehended advanced planetary laws and ultimate planetary laws, which could increase the combat body by 1,000 or 10,000 times. However, there were just too few cultivators who could comprehend laws, and the effort was not proportional to the gains. For many cultivators, if they focused on studying the combat body and obtained some resources, they could achieve at least 5 life transitions. They could even become planetary life forms as long as they had the opportunity. As for laws, if one could not comprehend it, no matter how much time was spent, it would be for naught. No amount of resources would help. One could only rely on themselves to comprehend it. Apart from those cultivators who were extremely talented, very few cultivators would spend effort to comprehend laws. All those cultivators who could comprehend planetary laws were top geniuses in the vast universe, or top geniuses that were hard to come by in billions of years in supreme factions. Grand Emperor Scorpius had also met such geniuses before. They were indeed extraordinarily impressive. They were practically invincible among those of the same level, and could even fight above their levels. However, it was unheard of for a mere elementary planetary life form to comprehend advanced planetary laws, like the Wanderer in front of him. It was no wonder that Grand Emperor Scorpius could not see through it no matter what previously. It was not that Grand Emperor Scorpius was ignorant, but that all of this was too shocking. No one would believe it even if he announced it. And the truth was right before his eyes. Seal. Grand Emperor Scorpius's first thought was to capture this Wanderer. No matter who the other party was, being able to comprehend the advanced planetary law meant an incredible level of comprehension ability. However, since the other party had offended him, how could Grand Emperor Scorpius hold back? Expand. 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 The Grand Emperor Scorpius's palm enveloped everything. Just this single palm had already exceeded billions of kilometers. Even if Lin Feng really had a combat body of 200 million kilometers, it was useless before this huge palm. Lin Feng saw the true strength of a Grand Emperor. That massive combat body was simply unimaginable to Lin Feng. He could not even describe it. 200 million kilometers was nothing. Even 2 billion kilometers or 20 billion kilometers was nothing. It was not even a fraction of Grand Emperor Scorpius's combat body. This was because Grand Emperor Scorpius had deployed his entire combat body at this moment, which had already reached more than a light year. What was the concept of a light year? A light year was equivalent to more than 900 trillion kilometers. How massive would that combat body be? Forget about the thousand-fold enhancement of Lin Feng's combat body. Even if it was enhanced by 10,000 times, he would still be as insignificant as an ant before a Grand Emperor. They were not on the same level at all. Lin Feng finally understood why a Grand Emperor could dominate the cosmos and become the hegemon of a region. No matter how many venerables were put together, they were absolutely not a match for a Grand Emperor. In many galaxies, without a divine king, a Grand Emperor could dominate for a lifetime. No matter where it was, a Grand Emperor was a powerful entity from on high, and definitely not someone a venerable could compare to. Even in the divine palace of Bamond, there were many difficult matters that divine King Bamond could only resolve by sending a Grand Emperor who was an ultimate planetary lifeform. Lin Feng could not help but smile with lament inwardly. He finally understood why his previous strike had gone so smoothly. Even if the cells of Grand Emperor Scorpius's combat body were constantly destroyed, so what? Even if all hundreds of millions of kilometers of combat body cells were destroyed, they would only be a tiny fraction of the entire combat body of Grand Emperor Scorpius. How could Grand Emperor Scorpius pay any mind to them? The difference is too great. Lin Feng smiled with lament inwardly. He looked at Grand Emperor Scorpius's palm above, and felt as if all his surroundings had been sealed. At this moment, Lin Feng no longer had any intention of fighting. A Grand Emperor and those below a Grand Emperor were on two completely different levels of life. The gulf was so great that even with the enhancement of laws, it was very difficult to make up for such a gap. Perhaps the ultimate planetary law could make up for such a gap, but Lin Feng had no clue about the ultimate planetary law, even with the help of the sacred stone of anathema. Moreover, even if he really comprehended the ultimate planetary law at that time, what was the point of a slightly more enhanced combat body? There was a huge difference in terms of the level of life alone between them. Seeing Grand Emperor Scorpius's huge palm descend, Lin Feng was no longer in the mood to fight. The surrounding space had already been sealed by the power of Grand Emperor Scorpius. If Lin Feng had only comprehended the elementary law of space, he could only use the black hole pearl now. However, Lin Feng had already comprehended the advanced law of space. So what if Grand Emperor Scorpius had sealed it? Lin Feng quickly transformed his combat body into the void traversal combat body. Then, without even shattering the space, he completely integrated into it, as if he was a part of space itself. Boom! With a grab from Grand Emperor Scorpius, the space in the surrounding cosmos shattered. However, there was not a trace of elation on Grand Emperor Scorpius's face. Instead, his expression was slightly dark. Spatial warp. In his fury, Grand Emperor Scorpius blasted another stretch of the cosmos apart. However, there was no longer any sign of the Wanderer. It was as if the Wanderer had never appeared at all. The 13 venerables flew in front of Grand Emperor Scorpius at this moment. Grand Emperor Scorpius had already returned to the size of a normal person. He stood quietly in the cosmos, his expression a little aloof. Grand Emperor, is that person already dead? The 13 venerables asked cautiously. Moreover, only the 2 top-notch venerables dared to ask. The other venerables stood silently at the side. Dead. Grand Emperor Scorpius laughed coldly. His gaze turned abyssal as the cosmos as he said in a low voice, "How can he be dead? If I'm not wrong, he has already warped space and left." Warp space? He's a Grand Emperor who has comprehended the law of space. The venerables were shocked. A Grand Emperor who had comprehended the law of space was extraordinary. It seemed that a Grand Emperor who had comprehended the law of space was unheard of in the entire North River galaxy. Who said that he's a Grand Emperor? Grand Emperor Scorpius's words shocked everyone. If he wasn't the Emperor, could he be a venerable? He's not a Grand Emperor, nor is he a venerable. He's just an elementary planetary life form. What? That's impossible. There's no way he can be an elementary planetary life form. The venerables were aghast. They could not believe their ears. They had really heard Grand Emperor Scorpius what had said. The other party was not even a venerable, and was only an elementary planetary life form. However, could an elementary planetary life form contend with a Grand Emperor? Could he send the 13 venerables flying with a single strike? Even though Grand Emperor Scorpius was the one who said it, they still could not quite believe it. Seeing that those venerables did not seem to quite believe it, Grand Emperor Scorpius snorted coldly. Humph, ignorant. There are plenty of geniuses who have comprehended laws in the vast universe. If I'm not wrong, this person is a top genius who has comprehended planetary laws, and advanced planetary laws at that. This kind of individuals cannot be evaluated by common standards. Moreover, he has comprehended the law of space. That means he has comprehended at least 2 laws. It's unbelievable. Even Grand Emperor Scorpius could not help but give praise and exclaim. Lin Feng had indeed shaken him. He had comprehended 2 laws to an advanced level. Such aptitude was simply unheard of. The other 13 venerables also had thoughtful expressions. Comprehending 2 types of advanced planetary laws was too shocking. Your Majesty, this person has such obvious characteristics. Why don't we search the North River galaxy? We'll definitely be able to find him. Someone immediately made the suggestion to Grand Emperor Scorpius, but Grand Emperor Scorpius's face darkened. So what if you find him? Can you kill him? Moreover, he changed his appearance and hid his name in the first place because he didn't want anyone to know his true identity. We didn't lose anything. It was just a spar. Such a genius is destined to shine in the future. Perhaps he'll go even further than I. Making such a great enemy over no reason is unwise. Grand Emperor Scorpius saw things very clearly. He would not pursue this matter because it was meaningless. It would only offend this cultivator with terrifying aptitude instead. They would pretend that this matter had never happened. In any case, the Scorpius domain did not suffer any losses. The other party seemed to be wary as well, and did not attack to kill. Grand Emperor Scorpius also gave strict orders for everyone to stop investigating this matter. The accident in Scorpius domain passed just like that. There were only occasional rumors that a mysterious cultivator challenged Grand Emperor Scorpius, but failed. As for whether they were dead or had escaped, no one could say for sure. Swoosh! Lin Feng emerged from the spatial passage. His face was still a little pale. He still had a lingering fear when he thought of Grand Emperor Scorpius's terrifying palm strike just now. It was too powerful even beyond his expectations. As worthy of a Grand Emperor, he could dominate an expanse of the cosmos and even seal space. If Lin Feng had not comprehended the advanced law of space, it would not have been so easy for him to escape successfully today. Normally, if a divine king does not come into being, a grand emperor would be the strongest in the cosmos. No wonder a grand emperor can dominate the cosmos without any match. The difference is just too great. It feels like two completely different levels of life. Lin Feng already vaguely understood. The Grand Emperor was a whole new level of life sublimation. The eighth life transition was also a hurdle. In the North River Galaxy, the venerables were many. Be they ordinary or top-notch venerables, there were ultimately many of them. However, there were very few Grand Emperors. This was because Grand Emperors were simply too powerful. They were so powerful that no matter how many venerables attacked together at once, it was useless before them. Every Grand Emperor could use a combat body of at least a light year. How terrifying was that? Even if Lin Feng became a venerable, and had the enhancements of advanced planetary laws, he probably would not be able to contend with a Grand Emperor. This was a Grand Emperor who dominated the universe and suppressed the cosmos. Everyone below a Grand Emperor was insignificant. No wonder even someone as proud as Venerable Vigil did not have the confidence to become a Grand Emperor, and was so cautious when mentioning Grand Emperors. It turned out that Grand Emperors really were far more terrifying than Lin Feng had imagined. However, his battle with Grand Emperor Scorpius was not completely fruitless. At the very least, Lin Feng had found his own position now. His current strength should be between a Venerable and a Grand Emperor. He could defeat almost all Venerables below the Grand Emperors. Of course, the prerequisite was that the other party had not comprehended planetary laws. Such strength had already far exceeded that when Lin Feng left the Divine Palace of Bamand. Even if he participated in the Big Bang, he would no longer be cannon fodder. He would at least be of some use now. It's time to return to the Divine Palace of Bamand. Raymond must already be getting anxious. Lin Feng turned around and looked in the direction of his home planet again. Then, he stepped into the spatial passage and teleported directly back to the Divine Palace of Bamand. The Divine Palace of Bamand. I finally returned. Lin Feng looked at planet Bamand in front of him and suddenly felt a little emotional. It had been almost 90 years since he left the Divine Palace of Bamand. There were only 10 years left until the Big Bang. 90 years might not be worth mentioning to others, but to Lin Feng, when he came to the Divine Palace of Bamand back then, he was not even 50 years old. 90 years had passed at once. Naturally, there was a feeling of vicissitudes. Moreover, back when he had not left the Divine Palace of Bamand, the Divine Palace hadn't felt so important. However, after leaving the Divine Palace, Lin Feng realized that he still missed the Divine Palace a little. In Lin Feng's heart, the Divine Palace of Bamand was already the second place he missed, besides his home planet. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was his second home. He already had a true sense of belonging to the Divine Palace of Bamand. When Lin Feng arrived at the Divine Palace, he realized that there were people queuing up to enter the lower district again. This time, no one offended Lin Feng, because the cultivators guarding the door had long approached to welcome him. Your Highness Lin Feng, welcome back. Lin Feng nodded and left under everyone's envious gazes. Your Highness Lin Feng. Your Highness is back. Your Highness Lin Feng. As Lin Feng was returning to the upper district, be it in the lower or middle districts, everyone bowed respectfully when they saw Lin Feng. Disciples of the upper district should enjoy such treatment, but Lin Feng was a little surprised. He had only stayed in the Divine Palace for a short period of time, and had not been in the upper district for long. Moreover, he had always kept a low profile. Why did it seem like everyone knew him now? This was a little unusual. However, when Lin Feng returned to his residence in the upper district, he understood everything. Longbetham, what did you say? I've been appointed as a law mentor. Lin Feng was a little stunned. When had he been appointed as a law mentor without his own knowledge? Moreover, there were also benefits for being a law mentor. Once one became a law mentor, theoretically speaking, those disciples in the middle or lower districts who benefited from Lin Feng's lecture on laws would all be deeply grateful, and form an actual master-disciple relationship with him. Even though the entire Divine Palace, be it the lower, middle, or upper districts, were all nominally the disciples of Divine King Bamand. In reality, even for core disciples in the upper district, how many of them could really receive guidance from the Divine King? Most of them actually relied on themselves to cultivate. Moreover, as a law mentor, one could obtain a large number of contribution points that could be exchanged for some miraculous items in the Divine Palace. Lin Feng did not know whether to be amused or frustrated. He roughly understood why he had been appointed as a law mentor. After all, there were very few people in the entire Divine Palace who had comprehended laws, and those who comprehended planetary laws were even rarer. Lin Feng was the most suitable person to be a law mentor. Moreover, this was a compulsory appointment. Lin Feng did not have any room for negotiation. As long as he was still a member of the Divine Palace of Bamand, he had to follow their arrangements. Moreover, lecturing about the laws at least once in 100 years did not take that long. He would just have to lecture for a few hours. Moreover, if something delayed him, not lecturing once in a few centuries was nothing. He could just make up for it later. There was quite a large degree of freedom. No wonder so many disciples were enthusiastic towards Lin Feng when he passed by the lower and middle districts. They were even overly enthusiastic. This was the true reason. He was a law mentor. Who would not want to comprehend the laws? With just a rudimentary law, one would be able to enhance the combat body by tenfold. How formidable was that? In terms of combat alone, there was no knowing how much it would increase combat power. For example, as one of the top venerables of the North River Galaxy, and the strongest venerable below the level of a Grand Emperor, Venerable Prime Dragon had a combat body of a total of 30 million kilometers. If he could comprehend a rudimentary law and enhance his combat body by tenfold, he would not have been completely trounced by Lin Feng. This was enough to show how important laws were. Master, when are you going to lecture about laws? There are still 10 years left before the century is up. There's no hurry. I'll naturally give a lecture before the Big Bang. Lin Feng had his own plans. By the way, did anyone come to look for me when I left the Divine Palace? Yes, His Highness Raymond did, and he looked for Master more than once. Lin Feng could roughly guess that Raymond was getting a little anxious. After all, the Big Bang was approaching. Originally, Lin Feng wanted to visit Divine King Bamand and ask him what the so-called Divine Emperor was. He had obtained the Void Sky Divine Pearl of Divine Emperor Void Sky, so he naturally wanted to understand some of the situation. He had a feeling that Divine Emperor Void Sky should be an extraordinary entity. But now, Lin Feng decided to contact Raymond first. Long Betham, contact His Highness Raymond. Beep. Calling request in progress. Request accepted. Lin Feng had just gotten Long Betham to connect to His Highness Raymond when Raymond's voice sounded. Your Highness Lin Feng, you're back? I've kept your Highness waiting. I just returned. Haha. It's good as long as you're back. There are still 10 years left. You made it in time. Your Highness Raymond, I'll come and visit you now. We can discuss things in person when we meet. Lin Feng hung up and prepared to visit Raymond. By the way, Long Betham, use the internal network of the Divine Palace to search about Divine Emperors. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. He thought about using the internal network of the Divine Palace. Many secrets could only be found in the internal network. Search complete. There is no information regarding Divine Emperors. Lin Feng frowned slightly. There was no information found? It seemed like this matter about Divine Emperors was not an ordinary secret. He could ask Raymond indirectly when he visited. After all, His Highness Raymond had been cultivating for a long time. He might know some secrets. Hence, Lin Feng went to visit His Highness Raymond directly. Your Highness, sorry for disturbing you. Haha, Your Highness Lin Feng is too polite. I've been looking forward to Your Highness Lin Feng's return for a long time. Raymond welcomed Lin Feng into his residence enthusiastically. The two of them sat opposite each other. Raymond said emotionally, Your Highness Lin Feng, you're finally back. I haven't congratulated you on becoming a law mentor of the Divine Palace yet. It's just a mentor. It's nothing much. Lin Feng shook his head. However, Raymond's eyes widened. He smiled weakly and said, Your Highness is too modest. The significance of being a law mentor is extraordinary. You probably know the strongest disciple in the upper district of the Divine Palace, His Highness Long Yuan, right? He's a dignified Grand Emperor, a great entity who is an ultimate planetary life form. His Highness Long Yuan is so powerful in the Divine Palace not just because of his immense strength, but also because he was once a mentor. Many disciples who ascended to the upper district later were respected His Highness Long Yuan deeply. This is what influence is. Lin Feng nodded. He had also heard of Long Yuan. He was very influential, and was the right-hand man of Divine King Bamond. His Highness Long Yuan was involved in many secret matters. However, Lin Feng had a different opinion. Influence was important, but strength was the sole standard. If Long Yuan was not strong, no matter how influential he was, why would Divine King Bamond value Long Yuan so much? To cultivators, strength was the foundation, and influence was just the icing on the cake. As if sensing that Lin Feng was not enthusiastic about this topic, Raymond changed the topic and mentioned the Big Bang. Your Highness Lin Feng, I've already contacted 2 other disciples for this trip. They are core disciples of our upper district as well. Both are advanced planetary life forms and are quite powerful. No problem. Your Highness Raymond is the organizer in the first place. Naturally, it should be your decision. All right. If your Highness has no objections, we'll prepare to set off in a month. Although there are still about 10 years until the Big Bang, just traveling will take some time. Moreover, we have to get there a bit earlier than the Big Bang. It would be a pity if we don't witness such a scene with our own eyes. Lin Feng had no objections either. He could also be better prepared in advance. The 2 of them chatted amicably. Lin Feng asked in an indirect manner, Your Highness Raymond, have you heard of Divine Emperors? Divine Emperor? Raymond's expression changed slightly. Then, his gaze flickered and he fell into deep thought. Seeing Raymond's expression, Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. Could there be something special about the title of Divine Emperors? Raymond pondered for a long time. Finally, a sharp glint flickered in his eyes as he asked in a low voice, Your Highness Lin Feng, where did you hear about Divine Emperors? Lin Feng said with practically no hesitation. I've been to the North River Galaxy before, and accidentally heard someone mention Divine Emperors. I only know of the Divine King Bamond in the Divine Palace, and had never heard of Divine Emperors. I got curious, so I'm asking about it now. This was the reason Lin Feng had thought of long ago. He would not reveal the matter of the Divine Emperor Void Sky so lightly. North River Galaxy? So your Highness Lin Feng has also been to the North River Galaxy. I heard that it's rather chaotic there. It's indeed rather chaotic. The strong are respected, and the weak are prey to the strong. In the North River Galaxy, it's difficult to even gain a foothold without great strength. His Highness Raymond nodded. Finally, he took a deep breath and said in a low voice, with a solemn expression, Your Highness Lin Feng, you've only been in the Divine Palace for a short period of time, and you haven't cultivated for long. It's normal that you don't know these secrets. In reality, many itinerant cultivators probably don't know what Divine Emperors are. However, I happen to know that this is a secret in cultivation. Only the disciples of some large factions know about it. Oh, please elaborate. Lin Feng also took on a somber attitude, appearing to take it very seriously. Raymond was very satisfied. Only then did he lower his voice and continue. As everyone knows, great galactic lifeforms are called Divine Kings. For example, His Majesty is the Divine King Bamond. His fame resonates throughout the universe. However, there are actually Divine Venerables above Divine Kings, and Divine Emperors above Divine Venerables. Divine Kings, Divine Venerables, and Divine Emperors are not classified by levels of life transitions, but difference in strength. They are all at the galactic level, but even at the galactic level, individuals differ in strength. For example, as elementary planetary lifeforms, you have the enhancement of laws, while other cultivators do not. Is the difference not great? It's the same for great galactic lifeforms. The difference in strength between them is enormous. Divine Emperors are one of those great experts who are at the critical point, apparently only half a step away from attaining the universal level. Even in the vast universe, they are considered the pinnacle of existence, and they are extremely rare. Every divine emperor dominates the cosmos and is invincible. There are very few divine venerables and divine emperors, so most cultivators naturally do not know about them. They only know about the divine kings. After all, most of the divine kings rule over an entire galaxy. Everyone knows about them. Lin Feng was overwhelmed with emotions. Although these were only some cultivation secrets, they gave him a relatively systematic and direct understanding of galactic lifeforms. Turned out that the divine king was not the apex. There were still the divine venerables and divine emperors. The fact that divine emperor Void Sky had almost transformed into a universe was already very terrifying. He was a great life form qualified to challenge the universal level. Even among divine emperors, he was probably one of the best. However, even such a powerful divine emperor still failed to transform into a universe in the end, and died as a result. Lin Feng's heart could not help but skip a beat. What were the mysteries of universal life forms above the galactic level? Originally, Lin Feng did not pay much attention to the Void Sky Divine Palace left behind by the Divine Emperor Void Sky in the Silent Galaxy. However, from the looks of it now, this was something left behind by a Divine Emperor. Even the Divine Kings would fight to attain it if they knew about this. Hence, this news absolutely must not get out. If news that he could find the Void Sky Divine Palace got out, even Divine King Bamond might not be able to protect him. Your Highness Lin Feng, did you really obtain this information about divine emperors from the North River Galaxy? Raymond was even a little suspicious. After all, if an ordinary cultivator was an itinerant cultivator, they might not know about divine emperors even if they became a venerable. This was a cultivation secret. Who would go around proclaiming that they were a divine emperor for no reason? Perhaps only those grand emperors who were ultimate planetary lifeforms would know some secrets. If not for a coincidental opportunity, even Raymond would not know the difference between divine kings, divine venerables, and divine emperors. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat, but he remained very calm on the surface. He smiled and said, "Of course it's from hearsay. I just heard someone mention it in passing, but they refused to elaborate when I asked for details next. That's why it caught my attention." "I see. If you ask others about such cultivation secrets, most of them wouldn't say anything." Raymond believed him this time. The two of them chatted about other things, then agreed to gather at Raymond's place in a month and begin the journey to the location of the Big Bang. Lin Feng agreed readily. After bidding farewell to Raymond, Lin Feng returned to his residence. All he could think about was the matter of Divine Emperor Void Sky. How could the things left behind by a great entity that could transform into the universe and attempted to metamorphose into a universal lifeform be ordinary? Even with Lin Feng's will, he could not maintain his composure now. "I'll have to make a trip to the Void Sky Divine Palace sooner or later, but I can't do it now. The Divine Emperor Void Sky is a dignified Divine Emperor who dominated the cosmos for a lifetime. His treasures probably won't be of much use to elementary planet lifeforms. Even if I find the Void Sky Divine Palace now, it won't be of much use. It might even attract trouble due to the treasures in the Void Sky Divine Palace. If I am to go, it would be best to do so after I strive to obtain more miraculous items after the Big Bang and metamorphose into an advanced planetary lifeform. Only then would it be the best time to find the Void Sky Divine Palace." Lin Feng muttered softly. Actually, it would be best if Lin Feng could search for the Void Sky Divine Palace after he became a Grand Emperor. The things inside would definitely be useful to him. However, how could Lin Feng leave it alone when there was clearly a treasure trove in reach? Lin Feng was already showing enough restraint. Otherwise, he would have headed to the Silent Galaxy to search for the Void Sky Divine Palace now. There was still a month before the departure. Lin Feng did not waste this month. He organized his comprehension of the law of tides. 3 days later, he headed to the Middle District to lecture about the law of tides. Hearing this news, the people in the Middle District all cheered. It was not that Lin Feng looked down on the Lower District and did not want to go to the Lower District. The reason he decided to go to the Middle District was that most of the disciples in the Middle District had undergone 5 life transitions, and already had some contact with or understanding of laws. If he went to the lower district, half of the people might not even know what laws were. Wouldn't that just be talking over their heads? Moreover, Lin Feng used his authority as a law mentor to make an exception. He allowed disciples in the lower district who had some contact with or comprehension of laws to come to the middle district to listen to the lecture. This decision also evoked great enthusiasm in many disciples in the lower district. They all signed up to participate. 3 days passed in a flash. When Lin Feng descended in the middle district, he realized that the square of the middle district was actually filled with tens of thousands of disciples. The enthusiasm of the Divine Palace disciples exceeded Lin Feng's expectations. He had thought that 1,000 or 2,000 people would be about it, but he did not expect there to be so many. He had underestimated the identity of a law mentor. No wonder even Raymond, a core disciple of the upper district and a dignified advanced planetary lifeform, felt envy towards Lin Feng for becoming a law mentor of the Divine Palace.